Welcome back, Ignite Church, to our 10 days of 10 different devotionals leading up to this 10-year anniversary that we're having. Today is day 4, and I have the honor of bringing the devotional for today. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you guys for coming along in this journey. Today we're going to be in the scripture. We're going to be in Acts 9, 1 through 19. And if you don't know, this is the story of Saul's conversion from Saul to Paul when he encountered Jesus. Before I dive in and talk a little bit about what's revealed in this story and what this has to do with what we're talking about, I really want everyone to just pause right here. Go ahead and read the scripture. Let it speak to you for yourself, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. All right, so one of the reasons why I picked this story is if you don't know, I did not find Christ until later on in my life. And one of the things that I found that was really difficult when I became a Christian and when I was called into ministry was to really put back all the things that I felt like I had done wrong, to feel like that God could use me in ministry. It was really hard because the devil would constantly put those doubts in your head. Like, I had been so sinful and I had been seeking so much pleasure and selfishness in my own life that I wondered if I got up on stage or if I was to preach or if I was to bring the word, how would people listen to me because of all the things that I've done, the past that I've done? And what I see in this scripture is that Paul's dealing with the same thing. In fact, we joke because he's one of the few people, or the only person in the Bible who had to change his name. Okay, he was Saul, and if you don't know, he was zealous for the Jewish community, for the Jewish nature he grew up in. And so he was one of the spiritual leaders within the Jewish community, and he wanted so badly to hunt down other Christians that he went and asked for this job. He asked to be sent to Damascus. And not only that, but he was ruthless. You see in the scriptures, he says that, verse 2, it notes that he was ready to take both men and women as captive. He was not just, going after men. He was going to go after anyone that was going to be part of this Christian thing. He wanted to stamp it out. And we know that he was murderous. He was violent. He was so much of a impediment to Christianity that he had to change his name from Saul to Paul. But we read in the scriptures that he has this miraculous encounter with Jesus where Jesus speaks to him and Jesus calls him. And we see the other people, they cannot, see what Paul sees, but they hear this loud voice. And you can imagine as Paul's on the way thinking that he is doing the right thing, thinking that he is being righteous for his cause, he realized that everything that he has been doing in his life has been wrong and sinful, and that he's actually been a harm to what is good. And if you don't know, this guy Ananias comes and he's sent by God to come. And after Paul's lost his eyesight, he kind of heals him. And Paul's like, what do I do now? And what he doesn't realize is that he's just getting started. Paul is about to go on a missionary journey. He's about to bring the gospel. In fact, it says in this scripture that Paul is going to be used to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. God has chosen him, this broken vessel, to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. So Paul, someone who was murderous, someone who was treacherous, who was a true enemy of Christianity, has now had his experience with Christ. And because of that, he has cast all these things behind him, and now God is going to use him to write a majority of the New Testament and also to bring the gospel to the people that don't know anything about it throughout the world, to the Jews and the Gentiles. And so when I think of that, when I read this, what I really think about is, and what I wanted you to ask yourself, is there something in your life that the devil is trying to use, that the devil is trying to put in front of you to make you doubt that you can be used? Maybe there's some kind of past sin or something you did before you found Christ that you really have a hard time forgiving yourself for, but God is telling you that you are forgiven, just like Saul was forgiven so that he could be used for God to bring the gospel. God it's never too big for God. You can give it to him. You are forgiven. So what I ask you is, there's something in your life that you need to just cast to God, be forgiven for, that so you can be used. And if there is, that you would just pray about that today. Second question I would ask you is that out of that forgiveness, Saul became Paul, and God said, you are now going to be used to do these great things. God is going to use this broken vessel that was Saul to do his will and his work. So what I ask you is there something in your life that God has specifically forgiven you of or called you out of, and now he is going to use you to bring glory to him? Think about what that is. Pray about what that is. Because the truth is, after this story we read where Saul becomes Paul, God is just getting started with him. And we believe that as a church, even after this 10 years, that God is just getting started in our church. And really that is because all of you are the hands and feet of this church, and God is just getting started in your story, and we know that the future holds something great, and we want you guys to walk alongside of us as we explore that, and we're so thankful for all of you. So let's just pray about that and talk about that and think about that today. Thank you, guys.